I'm just going to get going and just do some introductions as we wait for more people to join. But hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Excel Hacks for Easy Data Cleaning. So my name is Stephanie, and I'll be your moderator for this event. And I'd just like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for our very first session of the year and our first MrExcel session of 2025. So today I have with me Bill Jelen. Bill is the host of MrExcel.com and the author of now 69 books about Microsoft Excel, including Excel Gurus Gone Wild, Pivot Table Data Crunching, and Excel Inside Out. He has made over 80 guest appearances on TV's Call for Help with Leo Laporte and was voted Guest of the Year on the Computer America radio show. He has produced over 2,500 episodes of his Excel video podcast, Learn Excel from MrExcel, and he also had a three-time commentator. He was also a three-time commentator for the Excel World Championships broadcast on ESPN. So lately, he worries a lot about the Excel advice that is given by the new AI tools and wonders how his former Accounting 101 professor would react to the concept of a bot hallucinating accounting results that change from day to day. However, he is consciously honing his own GPT bot, the MrExcel GPT bot, with all of the knowledge from hundreds of hours of his YouTube videos and books. And I'll make sure to share that with our recording too. And before founding MrExcel in 1998, Jelen spent 12 years as a financial analyst for the accounting, finance, marketing, and operations departments of a publicly held company. So today you will receive the recording and additional resources with, not today, but within the next 24 hours. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And then at the conclusion of the webinar, there will be a few survey questions about your experience and about future webinars. Your feedback is greatly appreciated. It really helps us gear future topics because we want to hear what you want to say. And as a reminder, you must complete 3 out of the 4 live poll questions during this webinar in order to receive your CPE credit, and then Bill will be emailing them to you directly within the week. So a little bit about us. But More for Apps is a certified Microsoft and Oracle partner. We have over 400 customers and 34,000 end users. We offer nearly 30 out-of-the-box wizards and modules built specifically for organizations running on Oracle EBS and Oracle Fusion Cloud with validated integration and tight security. But let's get to what we're really here for. So Bill, take it away.
Okay, all right. I'm super excited today. We have all kinds of great topics. Stephanie, for that, thanks for having me today and giving me a chance to share everything here. So let me share my screen. All right, there we are. So here's the plan. Here's the plan today. Data cleaning hacks. We're going to do some just straight Excel data cleaning, like things that, we come up with all the time. But then we're going to take a lot of the time today and talk about something called Power Query. It's back here on the Data tab. It's been there for a few years, and most people don't even realize the power that's back here. And so I have a lot of examples on that. And then we're going to take a look at one of the newest ways to clean data, which is Python. Now, Python's not new, but what is new is that we have the ability to insert Python right into Excel, which is super exciting to me and also intimidating as heck because I know Excel really well and I'm horrible at Python. But the great news is there's lots of resources out there where you can just kind of ask Google and it gives you code. And a lot of times that code works. And Microsoft is in preview right now with some features where you can just ask in Excel and it'll give you the code. And it works even better a lot of the time. All right, so that's the plan. If you've been here before, you probably have this book, MrExcel 2024, Igniting Excel. If you haven't downloaded that, you can download it again. I'll put the link in chat. Or actually, tell you what, Stephanie, if you could send out the link tomorrow, that would be great. People can download that.
Yeah, I have the link. I'll make sure everyone gets it.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. Perfect. All right, good. So we're going to start off here with some old school data cleansing, filling in the blanks in outline view. Let me open that file. This is one of my favorite old tricks of all time. So here we have a report. I'll try and make it a little bit larger. And you can see that starting in column D, all the columns are filled in. But over here in columns A, B, and C, whoever created this report thought they were being really clever by using this outline views. Like all of these rows, all these rows right here are supposed to be communications. But they don't fill it in. They just put the top one in and like this is all region. And then these are all AT&T. These are all Lucent. These are all SBC communications. And so we have to very slowly fill all this stuff in, which is just very, very tedious if you've ever tried to do this the old-fashioned way, where you're grabbing the fill handle and dragging down and so on, right? And the tool that I love for this is something that used to be so hidden before, and they've kind of made it a little bit less hidden today, but it's still really hidden. It's under Home, Find and Select, and not Go To. Go To is Control G or F5. It's not that. It's the thing underneath it called Go To Special, right? This amazing thing, Go To Special. I actually keep threatening that I'm going to write an entire book just on this dialog box and all the cool things you can do in Go To Special. It allows you to take a selection and narrow the selection down to just the formulas or just the error cells or just the visible cells, which is really good for data that's been collapsed, or in this case, blanks, which is what we're going to use. So now check out this awesome way that I'm going to fill in all of those blank cells. And wow, we have a bunch of rows. It goes all the way down to row, oh my God, hundreds and hundreds of rows. Like if you had to manually fill all those in, it would just take forever. So step number one, I'm going to go down here to the very last blank cell, Control Shift Home, which selects all of the blank cells plus the cells that aren't blank. And what I need to do is I need to narrow this down to just the blank cell. So remember again, that's Home, Find and Select, Go To Special. And I'm just gonna, I love this one so much. I really desperately want to put it up on the quick access toolbar, but you see, because there's no icon there, if I right click and say add to quick access toolbar, it shows up as one of these stupid little dots. These dots mean, hey, this is one of those things that doesn't have an icon. So you're supposed to, guess which dot is the one. And like, I have no clue, like I don't use any of these dots anymore because they all are just dots. So, hey, Microsoft, if you're listening, give us an actual icon for Go To Special. I don't care what it looks like. I just need some sort of an icon. So for me, it's always Home, Find and Select, Go To Special because I can't remember which dot it is. All right, good. Inside of Go To Special, I'm going to choose all of the blank cells. Click OK. And what that's done is that's unselected anything that has text, and it gives me just the blank cells. And now from here, it's just 3 clicks. I love these 3 clicks. These 3 clicks, if we were all in a room together, there'd be some of you go, why do you do these 3 clicks? First thing, equal sign. Equal sign says, hey, we're starting a formula, right? And then I'm going to use the old Lotus 1, 2, 3 trick where we didn't have a mouse. You would just use the arrow keys to point to a cell. I want the cell just above me. So equal sign, up arrow. And now I need to fill in that type of formula, the thing to grab the cell just from above me in all of the cells of the selection. So that is hold down the control key and press enter. Control enter like that. Like it just filled in 3 columns, all those blank cells all the way down. Now, the one extra step here is you really need to reselect the data. So Control Shift down and Shift right, and then copy. I don't care how you copy, and then do a paste as values or paste special values, whichever you prefer, or you can even right click and paste as values. You need to convert those to values in order to get it to work. All right. So now that's a faster way, just using straight Excel, not using any of the tools. All right. And I'm doing these three to start just to compare how it works in the new way. So that was filling in the blanks in the outline view. I'll cross that one out. All right. This one is, geez, when I say it's pretty new, it was introduced in Excel 2013. So, wow, I got like 12 years. Actually, in 7 more days, it will be exactly 12 years old. The flash fill feature. Let's take a look at this. This is sometimes just an amazing way to go. Okay, so we'll make this one a little bit larger. It says using Python. I hate this autosave button up here. I honestly do. This originally said use flash fill. Actually, use a formula. Let's turn autosave off. I hate autosave. Use a formula to extract the state. All right, so look at that column B right there. That is an ugly, ugly field with the address. Sometimes we have suite numbers, city, state, and zip, right? And I want to get the state code, right? So I don't know how many commas there's going to be before that. And the great news, if you have the latest version of Excel, you now have this great new function called text after. Whoops, equal sign, text after. I want everything after, right? So go back to here to column B, B4. I want everything after the last comma. So in quotes, I put a comma. I want everything after the last comma. And then the awesome part, which comma do I want? So if I ask for the number 1 there, they'd count from the left and they'd get me everything after this comma. So I'd get Tamarland, Kansas 48977. But I don't want to count from the left. I want to count from the right, right? So the awesome syntax here. My friend Charles Williams in England is an Excel MVP. He invented this syntax and then Microsoft stole it from him. Is to say -1. -1 says we're going to count from the right end. So I don't know how many commas there's going to be, but I want you to go to the last comma and get me everything after that. And see, that's going to give me Kansas 48977. That's not really good, is it? But I can get rid of that first space by saying I'm looking for not just a comma, but a comma space. Right? And that starts to look pretty good. Now I can imagine that I'm going to use the left 2 of that, except as I copy this down, I see some things that just, they don't work, like APO. Okay, so let's talk about this amazing thing called flash fill. Back here on the data tab, it's on the right-hand side, right there, it's called flash fill. And if we hover, we see that flash fill is Control E. All right, now I hate when flash fill starts to take over without me asking for flash fill. So I've turned it off, and there's a pretty good chance that you've turned it off as well. File, options, advanced, right here, automatically flash fill. I uncheck that. I don't want them to choose when to do it. I want to consciously say, hey, I think this will be really good for flash fill. So what we're going to do over here is we're just going to type state. It has to have a heading. That's the most important thing. The guy that programmed this, his name is Chad. Chad on the Excel team, he wants headings above every single column and a heading above the thing we're about to fill in. And all we have to do is just give it a few examples. So I want Kansas from that one, Delaware from that one, Arizona from that one. And then from the next blank cell, I do flash fill, right? And they get it. They figured out that I'm looking for everything in column B after the last comma, but not the numbers. And so it worked perfectly, right? This is just such an amazing thing, flash fill. And there's certainly ugly data sets that are just phenomenal with flash fill. And this works out to be one of them. All right, so flash fill is our another, I'm going to call it old school way of cleaning data. Close that one. And then the old way down pivot. The old way down pivots. All right, this report. This report. This is an ugly report, right? But it looks like a lot of reports we get, right? They have the model number mixed in with the region here. They don't bother to fill in the regions. The blanks in column C, blank rows everywhere. And you can do some basic things to kind of fill it in and end up with data that looks like this, with model in its own column, region, market. But then having these months go across, and I realized back here was quarters. I changed it to months. Having the months go across, this is a horrible data set. I mean, it's a great summary, but if you want to do anything with this, we really need to take those months that are going across and make them go down, right? And with 12 of them, it's going to be super ugly. I'm going to take all of this data in columns A, B, C, and D. I went too far. I'm going to copy that, Control C, and I'm going to paste over here like this. And then I need to fill in all of these to say that they came from January. And if I just double click to copy that down, I think it's going to fill a month name. So I have to do something special like Control D to make sure that those all stay as January, right? So now I've got the January data, but then I need to repeat that like 11 more times. So I delete January because I have it, and I'm going to select everything for February. I'm not going to do this because you can just imagine just how painful this is. But I certainly used to do this all the time to take that data that's going across and make that data very, very tall. Now, I was doing this one day in Dallas, and a friend of mine, Mike Alexander, he and I were co-authors of a book called Pivot Table Data Crunching. And Mike's in the back of the room. He had taught in the morning. I'm teaching in the afternoon. He's like, hey, I got a better way to do that. And Mike proceeded to show me the weirdest trick I've ever seen in Excel. All right. So Mike says the first thing is you have 3 columns of text over there on the left. You need to get rid of those columns of text. You need to concatenate everything together. And today that's easier thanks to this new function we have called text join. Text join is, what is it? Back in 2017, they gave us text join. It says take all of these values and put a pipe. That thing is called a pipe. And that second argument there is if there was something blanked, we want 2 pipes in a row. Well, I don't have any blanks in there, so it's going to work out fine. So double click to copy that down, right? And now I don't need columns A, B, and C anymore, once I convert these to values, right? And then here's Mike's trick. Um, we're going to take this data and we're going to create a very special pivot table out of it. But I can't go to insert pivot table because it's not in this dialog box anymore. This was such a weird pivot table. They got rid of it after Excel 2003 or something like that. So you have to go back to the old Excel 2003 menus where it was data pivot table. So I press Alt D and then P, and look at that. That's the Excel 2003 pivot table and pivot chart wizard still living in there. And you choose this thing called a multiple consolidation range. I'm going to create the page fields. Now, you're not going to remember this because there's a much faster way to go. I just want to show you how painful this process was in the past. So here's my range. I select the whole range and you click finish, right? And we get a pivot table that looks just like the original data. I remember thinking to Mike, like, what are you doing? This is completely insane. But you all know if you do this thing inside of a pivot table where you double click any cell, it drills down and it shows you the detail behind that cell. So we go to the grand total row, the grand total column, that very last cell in this multiple consolidation range pivot table. Now check this out. Double click to copy that, or double click to drill down. And it takes that data that had been going across and it makes it go down the page. All right. Now, I hate those steps. I'm glad I never have to do them again. I just wanted to show, like, that's the old way of how we would have had to solve that problem. All of those tricks go away. And first, I want to throw up our first CPE question first. Stephanie, can you do that for me?
Yep, give me 1 second.
Yeah, all right.
All right,
So
here you go.
here's the question. Have you ever used Power Query in Excel? A, I use it all the time and I love it. B, I have it, but I don't use it. C, my Excel does not have Power Query. And D, I've never heard of Power Query. I have no idea what you're talking about.
I'm gonna give everybody a chance to answer. Reminder, you gotta at least answer 3 out of the 4. So here's your chance. Wait a few more seconds. All right, last call. All right, let's see. Here are the
Okay.
results.
All right, great. So 20% of the people have it all the time, and I love it. That's great. 38% have it, don't use it. And then the one I love, 12%, my Excel does not have Power Query. 30%, I've never heard of Power Query. So that right there adds up to 42%. I'm thrilled with that because 5 years ago, that would have been 98%. So at least some people are aware. And so my question, right, we can put that away if you can or not, I don't know, whatever. My question is, how can it be that we have this amazing tool, which some of you haven't seen yet, and no one knows about it, right? And here's what happened. In Excel 2013, this was the data tab, and we had things like from access, from web, from text, from other sources, existing connections, refresh all connections, properties, and edit links. One day your IT department gave you a new computer and all of a sudden you're upgraded to Excel 2016. And in Excel 2016, you on the data tab have things that sound, if you're not looking at them side by side, you would swear this is about the same. From text CSV, which matches that, from web, which matches that, from selection, recent sources, existing connections, that certainly matches, queries and connections, sounds like connections, refresh all, refresh all. You would swear that nothing had changed. But everything changed. These icons are 100 times more powerful than the old icons. They've hidden all the old icons. And it reminds me, if you remember this comedian who was really popular back in the 80s, Stephen Wright, his joke, last night someone broke into my apartment and replaced everything with an exact duplicate. I mean, that's almost feels like what happened here. Microsoft had a data tab. They took all this stuff off the data tab and replaced it with something that sounded exactly the same. So most people who would look at this say, well, yeah, nothing really changed there, right? Oh, but everything changed there. And I'm going to show you some cool examples of that. All right, so I have a nicely formatted report. This is an actual report that came in. Let's see. Yep, this is an actual report that came in. I was doing a seminar down here in Florida, and it was for all of the CFOs for a bunch of private golf clubs, right? Like golf, all up and down the coast. We have these golf clubs, not golf clubs, clubs for people who golf, right? And the CFO brought in this report that apparently they're getting from their club software. And I looked at it and she's like, you show us pivot tables all the time, but I can't create a pivot table from this. And I'm like, yeah, this data is super ugly and not pivotable, right? I mean, first off, these are merged cells up here. That Q1, that's a merged cell. So we have two row headings that are merged. The blanks here need to be filled in. And I was just like, oh yeah, this is really ugly, right? And she's like, well, this is what we get all the time. I need to pivot this. All right. So here's the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this workbook and I'm going to select the data. Power Query really wants to work with either named ranges or with tables, right? And even this isn't good to be a table, so it really needs to be a named range. So you select the data like this, and then up here in the name box, you give it a nice one-word name. In other words, no spaces. So I called it ugly data. Now, I'm not being critical of the data that we're getting from this report, but this is pretty ugly data. So I called it ugly data, and then that's good. I can just save this workbook. So every month I download this, I'm going to go and rename it as ugly data. And then I'm going to have another workbook that's going to clean this ugly data for me. So I'm going to come here to File, Info, and I'm going to copy the path. That way I don't have to navigate out to that path. And then just from a new workbook, Control N. All right, we're going to come back here to the Data tab. And this section here called Get and Transform Data is one of the most amazing data cleaning tools. And it's been here since Excel 2016. And even before that, for the last 3 years before that, you could have gotten an add-in that did it. Okay. So we're going to take a look at the first one. We're going to get data from a file. Look at all the different files they support from an Excel file, CSV file, JSON file, PDF, from an entire folder of files. That's really cool. We'll take a look at that. And then a whole bunch of databases, right? Their goal is that anything you have, they're going to be able to get the data from it. And if not, from other sources, there's even an old ODBC driver. So like you should be able to get to just about anything. So from file, from an Excel workbook, and I'm going to navigate to that folder. Oh, actually, no, shoot, that's the wrong thing. Get data from file, from folder. I need to look at what they paste there. Oh, sorry, hang on. Get data from file, from an Excel workbook. All right, now I'm going to get it. Third time's the charm. Fourth time. All right, maybe I should just navigate there. Tell you what, I'm going to come over here to this other screen and we're going to copy this path, paste that path in there. There we are. So 04 Power Query report from Hades. Still open. All right. This could be a record. Get data from file. You're thinking like, why would we use something like this? All right. Power Query report from Hades. All right. You see that they either offer sheet one or ugly data. I'm going to use that named range of ugly data. They show me what the data is going to look like. Yeah, that's what it looks like. All right. And then I'm going to click down here and say transform data. And this is the first time that we are going to see that we are in something called the Power Query Editor, right? So they have this amazing tool called Power Query, and no one thinks they have it because you can't find Power Query anywhere in the Excel interface, but we've gotten there, all right? And what we have, this is not written by the Excel team. This is written by the SQL Server team. And Power Query, these tools are in Excel, they're in Power BI and Power Automate, right? So 3 different Microsoft tools all support the exact same language. And what we have, you'll see that first thing they did is they took those headings Q1, Q2, and Q3 and took them up as headings, and that's really bad. We don't want that. So over here in applied steps, I'm going to undo 2 of the things that they did for me automatically and just go back to that regular Excel file that we had. Okay, now here's the awesome part about this. There's several awesome parts, but awesome part number 1 is there's a lot of tools that in Power Query are dramatically easier than they were in Excel. My first example where I had to fill in all those blank cells. That was select all the data, and then home, find and select, go to special, choose blanks. Once I had the blank selected, equal sign, up arrow, control, enter, and then reselect everything, copy and paste values, 7, 8, 9 steps. Watch how easy it is over here in column A to fill in that word revenue and the word expenses into all the empty cells underneath. I just choose that cell, and then under transform, they have something called fill down. Transform, fill down, three clicks, and it's done everything that took forever to do in the old Excel. Okay, then up here I have the Q1 and actual budget and variance. I need to join those together. And unfortunately, it'd be really nice if I could select this and say fill right, but they don't have fill right. I only either have fill down or fill up. So what I'm going to do, check this out. I'm going to transpose the whole data set, right? And now I can come here to column 1 and do fill down, which gets the Q1 filled in. And now I need to take Q1 actual and make that be a single heading. So I take these 2 columns, select them both, and under add column, they have something called merge column. Now, hey, look, this is easy in Excel. Equal text join with a space in between. It's not hard to do, but boy, it's even easier here. We're going to say merge these columns, and in between the separator is going to be a space. And click OK. The only thing I don't like is that it doesn't put it in column C, which is where I think it should be. It always puts it all the way out at the end. They're called merge. So I'm going to right click and say move this to the beginning, which is actually pretty nice, right? So now I have that heading up there like I want it, and I can get rid of these 2 headings here. So right click and remove column. In Excel, it'd be right click and delete, but delete and remove column. It's just like the Excel team calls it delete, the Power Query team calls it remove column. It's easy enough. If you're comfortable with Excel, you're going to be really comfortable with this. All right, and now that I've got that heading fixed, I'm going to come back here and transform and transpose it back to the original way. Good, now I have my headings in the first row, and on the home tab, I'm going to say use first row as headers. All right, starting to come along here. You'll see that we have the word actual up here and then repeated again and again. I don't need anything in this column that says actual. Actually, I don't need any of the nulls or actuals. So I'm just going to filter the data, unchoose nulls, and unchoose actual. Click OK, leaving all the numbers. That's beautiful. Let me look out here on the far right-hand side. Do we have any kind of Q4 total? No, we don't. Okay, that's good. All right, but now we're back to, oh, wait, I still have total revenue, total expenses. So if there's a null in this column, I need to get rid of it. So uncheck null there. Null, by the way, is just in Excel, we have empty cells, right? In Power Query, they put the word null just to let you know that it's really empty and not a space or an apostrophe or, those weird things. Okay. So now we're up to the point where we have the Mike Alexander set of horrible steps. And this is the one that is truly amazing. So I want to keep all the stuff along the left-hand side. These 2 columns, I'm going to select, and then under transform, I'm going to take this data that currently is very short and very wide, 11 rows by, I don't know, 3, 6, 9, 12, 14 columns. I'm going to make it very narrow and very tall really quick, right? And that is called, under unpivot, it's called unpivot the other columns. Right? And they just took all of that data. That's like 11, 12 cut and pastes over and over and over, filling in the month names for me. Although here it's Q1 actual, Q1 budget, Q1 variance, and so on. Right. So now I just need to, fix some things. This is like type. This is department. We'll leave attribute there. Value. I might call that amount. Just double click to rename that. If I want to, I could take attribute and split it into 2, just like we have text to columns. It would be here under split column. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Split column by delimiter. Oh, check this out. This is such a small thing, but I'm such a fanboy of this. Data text to columns. For the last 30 years in Excel, every time you do data text to columns, it gets tab, right? Power Query doesn't always default to tab. It looks at the data and says, hey, look, every single row has a space. We bet it's a space. Right. And just the fact that they can choose space, that makes me so happy that I don't have to go through and unchoose tab and re-choose space. They offer to go to each occurrence of the delimiter. I can say, nope, just split it once, although that's never going to be an issue here because there's only one delimiter. Click OK. And now I get attribute.1, attribute.2. I don't like those headings, but it's easy enough to rename them. So that's quarter. And this is line item or something. All right. So there we go. We have our data. Yeah, we're just going to pause right here before I pull that data back into Excel. Uh, a couple of things. It's faster to clean the data in Power Query than it would have been in Excel because of tools like unpivot and fill down. And there's more tools like that. Split column is definitely better here than text to columns is. Not just because they choose space instead of tab, it can do all kinds of other amazing things. And I'll show you some of those. But what's really amazing is over here on the right-hand side is the world's greatest audit trail. Like, let's say that this report then goes on and gets put in the board packet, right? And the internal auditor wants to know, where did the report come from? Oh, I downloaded it from the club software, but then I had to do a few things to it. What'd you have to do? Oh, here's everything I did. This is what it looked like at step one. So over here in applied steps, I can show every single step of the way. If there was any kind of a dialog box, I can click the little gear wheel and I get to see that I join those two columns with a space and call it merged, right? So it is just an awesome set of steps. It self-documents everything. And in fact, if you really just want to drive your internal auditor crazy, sorry for the internal auditors that are here, on the home tab, there's something called the advanced editor, which gives a complete list of everything they did. Like, these are all of the steps and all of the answers to all of the dialog boxes right there in one little 20-line text file. I can just hand that to the internal auditor and say, this is it, right? So having an audit trail, oh man, that's great. That's great. All right, so right here, we're back here to this cleaned up data, close and load. And now it is going to, give me something that I can actually pivot, right? Which is just awesome. All right. Let's just take a quick break here. So we take a look at unpivot. Nicely formatted report, but difficult for analyzing. Stephanie, we can put up the second CPE question. All right. After using unpivot, your data will often be tall and narrow with few columns, wide with many columns, difficult to summarize, or converted to text.
Trying to give everybody some time.
Yeah, great.
Someone has a question though. Can you get rid of the alternating colors on import?
Yeah, boy, that's a great question. That's super annoying, those colors, right?
All right, last chance for the poll, and then we'll take it
Yeah.
down so you can answer that.
Right. Okay.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Awesome. Great. So tall and narrow with few columns. That's exactly what it does. It makes the data tall and narrow. So we're getting that because it's coming in as a table. And if we come here to table styles on the table design tab, there should be one at the top that's all just like that. The very first light is just nice and no banded columns. So yes, you can. Yep. All right. Now here's the thing. They're downloading this data from the club software, the company software, every month or every week, or even worse, every day, right? And they have to go through those steps. But now the amazing thing about Power Query is after I cleaned it the first month, they remember the steps. They're over there in that applied steps thing, right? So let's come back to the original data, this one. Let's see, missed. Okay. And we're going to add a brand new line. We're going to really screw some things up here. First off, we'll change this lodging number to 22222. And then, I know this is a golf club. What else can they do? They have food, they have tennis, they have, let's do pool parties. They're going to start off with pool parties. And we'll just put some numbers in here across the way. Wow, really popular. All right. So, in theory, if this had been an Excel macro, a VBA macro, we just screwed things up because nothing's where it used to be. We inserted new rows that it wasn't expecting, and all kinds of bad things are going to happen. I'll save that, file close. But the beautiful thing about Power Query is it's flexible enough that I just reopen this workbook, and it's a little annoying. Let me show you two things that are really annoying the first time you ever use Power Query. When you open the workbook, it just opens like this without that panel on the right-hand side. And that I love that panel. I always come here to data, queries and connections, which brings that panel back. And I don't know if you can see it. I didn't realize the screen's pretty small. It says ugly data, 132 rows loaded. And on the right-hand side, they've truncated the important thing. And the important thing is the refresh icon. So I need to make that column wider so I can see the refresh icon there. Refresh says, go back and do those 20 steps that we did last month on the new workbook, right? So we have a new workbook. We've already renamed it Ugly Data. I say, go get those new rows, right? And we just went from 132 rows to 144 rows because down here, we've now added 12 rows of pool parties, right? That month two, the second time I get to clean the data and I don't have to do any of the steps, that Power Query just does them all for me. That is a beautiful, beautiful day. Um, uh, Month three, I still love opening this up and clicking refresh. But by month four, I have to tell you, I'm a little annoyed that I have to click refresh now. Yeah, it used to take me 20 minutes and now it's taking me 20 seconds, but it's an annoying 20 seconds. So once you get to that point, you can right click this and go to properties and say, hey, look, every time I open this workbook, I'm trying to clean that file. So refresh the data when opening the file. I just open this, it'll go refresh the data. And now this becomes like the clean version of that ugly report that I download from the company software, right? This is an amazing, amazing thing. And how can it be? Like if you're seeing this for the first time, here we're sitting here in 2025. It's been 9 years since they added this to Excel without telling anyone that they added it. They didn't think that we would care. They were creating it for a bunch of people called SQL Server Analysis Services people who were forced to use Excel. And they're like, oh, those Excel people, they already know how to do all this stuff. They don't need these tools. Well, we do know how to do all this stuff, but the ways we are doing it are super slow. And let's be honest, if there's 20 steps, sooner or later, someone's going to screw up one of those steps, right? So having it all encapsulated in this program is just an amazing, amazing thing. All right. So we took ugly data, we named the range, clean the data once, and then when the new report comes down with extra records, all we have to do is click refresh and we get our answer. So just a really, really fast way. And I'm going to call this the amazing tool to clean report. I'd give it a better name than that, but that way I can find it later. Except all right. So nicely formatted report, difficult for analyzing. That was unpivot. All right. Here's a couple of things that Power Query can do that Excel cannot do or cannot do very easily. This next one I was in Roanoke, Virginia. Young guy named Dustin shows up in my seminar. And Dustin was there early. It was an 8:30 seminar. He got there at 7:30 a.m. Hey, Dustin, how's it going? You got any Excel questions today? I always ask that. And he shows me this Excel file he's downloading from his web system. And over there in column E, he had a list of products. Those products, like here, they sold 100 of these. And this isn't his real data. I made this up on the spot in my data. So he has a bunch of products that were on this order, and they're all there in column E, separated by semicolons. He's like, I need to take that and I need to twist that data into multiple rows. I need one row per product. Oh, yeah. I was like, yeah. Oh, I said, we're gonna have to wait till after lunch. I'm gonna have to write a macro for you, right? We'll have to write a macro, and I don't even know how that macro is going to work yet. If I started to think about it, it's like, okay, what's going to happen? So you have 11 items there, so we're gonna have to insert 10 new rows, right? Yeah. And I said, what happens over there in all of these columns? He's like, yeah, just take that data and copy it down into the blank rows. I was like, okay, I know how to do that. I'm thinking about how this is all going to happen. And it's early, so now it's 7:35, and no one else is going to show up at the seminar for another half hour. So it's just me and Dustin. By definition, a couple of introverts. I said, Dustin, we got this new tool. Let's just try this crazy new tool that we have called Power Query, and maybe Power Query can start to solve this problem. I don't know, right? So again, we want to take this data, either make it into a table or name the range. I think I'm just going to try and select the data and go to data, and then here in Power Query from a table or range. See, I don't like that they make it into a table. I really hate tables. I know a lot of people love tables, and I get it if you love tables. I understand why. I just don't like tables. So I'm going to name the range. I'm just going to call it my data. One word, no space. Good. Now that it's a name, I should be able to do from table or range, and they don't make it into a table for me. Okay, so now the product column, that's what we need to take. We need to take that data and turn it sideways. So I knew like split column, and first I thought I'd take product out to the right-hand side and just drag it out here first. That way, when I split it, it's going to end up in multiple columns. I don't know how many columns. Like here, it's only 2 columns. Here's a whole bunch of columns. So I moved it out to the right side first. And then under split column, I said, all right, well, I can see there's a delimiter there. So I'll say by delimiter and by semicolon, right, at each occurrence. And then I noticed that there's something here called advanced options, right? And I swear that I had never seen this before I was in Roanoke, Virginia. Maybe it had been there, or, and I just wasn't looking. That happens a lot. So advanced options, they have something called split into columns, which is what, of course, we always do with text to columns. It's even in the name, text to columns. But then they have this thing called split into rows. I'm like, what? What is this? Split into rows. And when you split into rows, it's going to take all of those items and create new rows for everything except for the first one and drag them down. Like this is crazy that this is something that we have that we can easily do from Excel, but in the Excel interface would be just completely impossible to do. You'd have to be writing macros to do this. Even with the new text split function that they've introduced last year, maybe you could pull this off, but it would still be super ugly because you'd have to pull all the other data down. And Power Query just does this like exactly right. So that really made Dustin's day. All right. So if you have data like that, and I've since learned, Mrs. Excel is a treasurer for the local orchid club, right? And she had to run the little square register at the last orchid show. And when she downloaded that data, oh, that's what it was coming from Square. Square is putting all those things in that single cell with the semicolons in between. I was like, I finally understood. I'm like, hey, I got a way to break that stuff back out. All right, so there's our how to split by delimiter 2 new rows. This next one, this one's really quick. This was in Calumet City, Illinois, just outside of Chicago. Wonderful lady showed up there, worked for some foreign embassy. And I love the accountingness of this next request. She's just like, I'm getting this ACH file from the bank every single day. And I need those strings are 205 characters, and I need to break them into 205 columns. Now, look, I will never say to the person, why the heck would you have to do that, right? There's some good reason, right? And when you try and come in here and go data, text to columns, fixed width, and then you have to click, this is maddening, right? Because clicking 204 times, and this poor woman had to do this every day, right? What a miserable thing. All right, we're not going to even try it. Like she has to do it every day of her life, but it would just be hideous to do it once. So here, under data, from table or range, I actually made it into a table this time. And under split column, they have by number of characters. So I want to split it into one character repeatedly, right? And so by just saying one character repeatedly, click OK. They just did it. They created 205 columns out of that. Going out to ach.205, close and load. And we now get a new sheet to the left of the first sheet with those columns broken out. I don't know what she had to do after that, right? But this infinitely easier than clicking 204 times. Not to mention you're going to misclick a few times, right? So like just the things that Power Query has that Excel, doesn't have. Combine all files in a folder and clean. All right, I'm going to pull this. Explorer file back here. I have a folder here called customer files, and you'll see it's a bunch of CSV files. My wonderful IT department thinks that this is the right way to get me this data. Every time we have a new deal, they put a new CSV file in here for me. The old ones just stay there. And I need to take all these CSV files and put them into a single grid, and then do some cleaning to all of those files. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to copy that path. This one right here, this is amazing to me. So under data, get data from a file, not from a single file, but from an entire folder of files. And this works with CSV files or Excel files. All right, so I've identified the folder. I click open, and they show me a list. They show me a list of these files. And I'm going to say, I'm going to transform the data first. All right. First thing I notice out here in column A, is a column called content that every row just says binary all the way down. I don't know what that is. And for the first year I was using Power Query, I would right click and remove. Like that was completely useless. But unfortunately, that took away the feature that I really needed, right? Like I didn't even realize this feature was here because the first thing I always did was get rid of that. And as I look down through here, there are things in that folder that don't belong there. Like Mrs. Excel called me one day and asked me to stop at the store. And so I just typed that into Excel and then saved it into this folder. It doesn't belong there. There is a MrExcel word cloud. Oh, I haven't done that example in a long time. And then the file from podcast 1956, that's like 600 podcasts ago. There's a zip file in there. And thumbs.db is in there, right? So the rule is if it's not a CSV file, I don't want to process it. So I keep just the CSV files. Click OK. All right, so now I'm down to those files. And I need to take all of the records from all of those files and bring them in to a single grid. And I'm so angry with Microsoft that the way that they chose to show this, I wish you could see it. It's really small. It's two arrows pointing at the ground. Like the fact that that isn't red flashing with a neon sign saying this is the greatest thing you've ever seen. Like that's what that icon should be. Instead, it's just two arrows pointing at the ground. Combine files. So I click that and they go out to the first file and they show me what it looks like. That way I know. Yeah. So here's headings across the top. Yep. Great. There's a run date at the bottom. That's super annoying. Click OK. And then they go out to that folder and they get all 17 files and they bring them into a single grid. And this feature is now like in version 2, it's gotten better. It used to be that these headings, January, February, March, would appear at the top of every file. So you'd have to go through and delete those. But now they're like, oh yeah, we're not going to bring them in. We're just going to bring it in once and use it at the top and then delete all the others. But they're not smart enough to get rid of the run date or the word total. So we still have to do that. So uncheck run date and uncheck total. Click OK. Still some annoying things. Customer and region should have had a comma in between. They have a slash in between. Do I need this file name? Do I need to know what it came from? I don't know. Maybe we'll leave it there. And then there's some zeros in here. So, there's things we can do. Like we can split that. We've already showed you how to split column. We could unpivot. There's probably a total at the right-hand side that I could get rid of. Look here. Yeah, grand total, right click, remove that. So a little bit more cleanup from here can get me a very nice view of that workbook. And then once they add more CSV files in there, all I have to do is come back and click refresh. And instead of 68 rows loaded, I'll have 72 or 76 or whatever. Just an amazing way. All right. So that's with CSV files, text files. It's with Excel files with a single sheet. It's it should even be with PDF files. I've never tried a bunch of PDF files, but they now deal with PDF files as well. If the PDF file is nicely formatted, not scanned on a DocuScan or something like that, it's a real file, right? So that combining a whole bunch of files from a single folder is just great. All right. Okay, closed everything. So we lost our with all of those. All right. Combine all sheets in a workbook and clean. All right, we have 15 minutes left. I definitely promised that we were going to get to Python and we should go take a look at those Python things. And then we'll circle back to these. Let's do the third CPE question, Stephanie. All right, which of these file types cannot be combined using that from folder trick that I just showed you? All right, is it CSV or text, Excel workbooks with a single sheet, PDF files, or JPEG files, picture files? Which ones are not handled by that thing we just did?
While we wait for the answers, we do have a question for you. Why
Great.
do you hate tables?
Yeah, I get it. Tables are wonderful, and they do all kinds of amazing things. I don't like the syntax of the formulas, which just means I should learn it. But when I have a table, it turns off custom view. It turns off three features that I use all the time. It turns off custom views. It turns off the subtotal function, which I'm just a massive fan of. I can't move or copy two sheets from the same workbook if one of them has a table. And for that reason, I'm not a fan of tables. I realize those are really small, picky things. Yeah. And I always quote the statistic that the table fans hate Microsoft in 2006 decided that they couldn't finish tables. And they said, this is going to make the product late. We're just going to take it out. And so they went to take it out, and the engineers came back and said, it's too late. It's too far embedded. It would take us longer to take it out than to finish it. So they didn't do either. They just left it in its state, right? So it's a feature that was never finished, which is my rationale for not using it. But I get it. If you, everyone that I meet loves tables, and if you love tables, I completely respect it. But not me. I'm still holding on. And there's talk now that they're going to fix some of that stuff. And if they fix it, then maybe I'll come back around. Maybe, you never know. Okay. Awesome. Oh, yeah. Do we show poll number 3? Of course, JPEG is the one thing that it cannot do. And by the way, just a tiny little rant here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. In the data, get and transform data, this thing called from picture, this is not Power Query at all. This is an evil, evil feature that does not work at all. Microsoft, who is the world's largest software company, cannot get data from a picture to work. This is so frustrating. And in this book, I have a link to 2 kids in Egypt who, for, I don't know, $7 will sell you a subscription to let you get data from an actual picture that just works tremendously. I mean, I've presented this to the Excel team. I'm like, this feature, like, go buy these kids out, right? They would be thrilled and get their logic because it works so much better than yours does. Sorry for that rant, but that's my rant. Okay, let's talk about cleaning data with Python. This is super exciting. Power Query is awesome, and I want to spend a lot of time on that. And I have a few more Power Query tricks, but Python is really new to Excel. It's new to Excel. I'm going to go back 10.5 years ago. One of my friends down the street having a big birthday party, right? So Rusty's birthday party, and a bunch of people there. I'm horrible. I'm horrible in a crowd, right? But one of Rusty's niece comes up to me and she says, "Hey, you're Mr. Excel," like they had told her. She said, like, I'm in college and we use Excel all the time. I love Excel. Like, oh, thank God I have something to talk to. At least I can talk pivot tables and VLOOKUP. But then she floored me with the second half of that sentence. That was a comma. I love Excel, comma, but it sure isn't as powerful as Python. That scared me. So here's something new that they're teaching these kids in school, and it's more powerful than Excel. So I rushed out and bought the book on Python. Like, I got to learn. I got to get up to speed, right? And reading chapters 2 through 13 of the book, there were all kinds of amazing things you could do with Python that would have been tough to do in Excel. I'm like, this is pretty cool. So I went back to chapter 1, where it shows you how to install Python on your computer, and it's impossible for me to do it. 48 steps, and the step number 1 is start from an elevated command prompt. Yeah, I couldn't get through it. And so the book just got sent to Goodwill. It's like, I can't get up the learning curve. Here's what is amazing about Excel is they've taken that learning curve away, and all of the install pieces are just done for you, right? So back here under formulas, this little section right here called Insert Python. This is our Python section. And so we now have the ability to write Python right inside of Excel. So I went to the bookshelf to try and find that book from 10 years ago, but it wasn't there because we gave it to Goodwill. I actually went back to the Goodwill to see if they still had it, and of course they didn't, because no one bought it. Probably threw it away. So I went back to Amazon and found the record from 10 years ago where I bought it, and bought the book again, and went to chapter 13 and did this amazing thing called K means clustering. K means clustering, which is built into Python. You take your entire customer database and it segments them into, like, these are the customers who really love VBA. These are the customers who really love Power Query. These are the customers who just love straight Excel, right? So I could take my mailing list and split them out, right? I was so excited to finally get to do that, 10 years after I first read about it. So what Python is doing for us is, for those of you who have read a little bit about Python, is you have to install all these libraries, pandas, NumPy, matplotlib, and then you have to refer to all of them in your Python code. So this all just happens automatically, right, for you, right? Like, I never even have to look at this. I just know that it's there, and I show off to people that, in case you know enough about Python, that's all handled for you. right? You don't have to install it. It's all just going to work. So I have data here, and I have some ugly things in this data. Like over in column A, it all came in all caps, and I'd like to convert that back to proper case, which is funny in Python is called title case. Okay. Um, the status needs to say in progress in that form and not that form. And there's some completes here that need to say completed. So I need to convert anything that says in progress lowercase to in progress title case, completed. Actually, that's a bug right there. That should say complete to, actually, I fixed it down here. Yeah, complete to completed. If the sales are not filled in, I want to fill it in with a 0. They're still a prospect. They haven't bought anything from us yet. And since I'm sending emails to these people, if we don't have their email address, I want to drop those columns. Okay, so right here, I'm going to copy this code to the clipboard. But we're going to start off with just something really, really simple. I'm going to come, let's see, where should we do this? I can do it out to the right, or I could do it on a new sheet. Let's do it on a new sheet. So I insert a new sheet here. I said I want to insert Python. Okay, first thing you'll notice, on the left-hand side of the formula bar is a green PY. That means that this is not just a single formula, it's a Python formula. And one of the things I've learned in Python, we have something in Excel called a range, right? So a range, we have a range of data. In Python, they have something called a data frame. And every example you ever find on the internet, the first data frame that you create is called DF. I don't know why, but that's what everyone does. That's what I'm going to do. So data frame is equal to, I come back here, I select the data, use the mouse because it doesn't seem like the arrow keys. So there's my data. It's from A3 to E153. And this is so much easier than what the books show you because you have to open the Excel file and suck the data into Python. Here, you just point to the range and you're good to go. And now I have this variable called data frame, DF, right? And from there, whoops, paste everything. Enable. From there, this is all code that I pulled off the internet. So I'm going to take the name field and I'm going to convert it to title case using a function called string.title. If anything in the sales column is blank, I'm going to fill it with 0. If the email is not more than one character, I'm going to delete that row. And then I'm going to split from the name field. I'm going to split into first and last name, fix the spelling and status, and then bring first name and last name back. All right. Now, really funny thing here. Funny. I don't know if it's funny. Strange, annoying. I'm not sure which it is. The Python people love to have stuff come back to them as something called a data frame, as an object, as a Python object. And I don't want that at all. I want to see the data in Excel, right? And so maybe someday when I grow up as a real Python person, I will accept the fact that they're going to just give me this thing called DF in a cell. And I know that it has all the data in it. I need to see all that data. So here to the left of the formula bar, there's an option to return this as a Python object or as an Excel value. And by default, it's a Python object. So I really hate that. And I always try and remember to come in here and say that I want to convert it to an Excel value. Enter doesn't accept this. You have to press Control Enter to commit the Python code. So Control Enter. Boy, I hope I got it right. Yes, look at that. All right. They're not smart enough to make the columns wide enough. And they gave me an index column that I really want to get rid of. But I'll have to be honest with you, I can't figure out how to. So I'm just going to hide column A or whatever, right? Copy and paste the special values. But the beautiful thing is, like every time I get that ugly file back there on the data, right? I just have to run this Python code, and now it's going to fix all of that stuff for me, which I think is great. And this is, did I know any of this Python this morning? No, I got all this Python from the internet. And actually, if you want to be completely honest about it, I have a beta version of Excel right now, and out here under Copilot, let's see, is this data, turn autosave on. Under Copilot, they have advanced analysis now that wrote all that Python for me. I just told it in 5 questions what I was trying to do, and it wrote the Python for me. And like now I can pretend like I actually know Python enough. So it's even better than that. That's data cleaning with Python. The other great thing about Python, which I'm not going to show you today, is they have all these amazing charts and visualizations that you might have seen in various websites that you can now create. Excel's been stuck with the same charts forever, right? They have beautiful charts, including, Like I downloaded all the Cleveland Cavaliers data. I got all of LeBron James's shot records against the Detroit, when they won the championship. Um, and it created an NBA shot chart. It's like that's just built in, which isn't anything to do with accounting. But the day that happened, I'm like, oh wow, there's all so much cool stuff that Microsoft would never do that. They never put that in Excel. But the Python people, it's open source, so they have all kinds of crazy, useful things like that. Right. So cleaning data with Python. Stephanie, let's put up the fourth one question. All right, which of these can be used to clean data? Is it A, Cobra, B, Anaconda, C, Python, or D, Bora, Boa, Bora, Boa?
We do have a couple questions for you too, if you want to
Okay,
answer them
great. Yeah,
quickly.
yeah, yeah.
One was, why would my Excel not have insert Python?
Oh, okay. That is a really good question.
Okay, I'm
Why?
going to give everyone a couple more seconds.
Yeah.
Anything? And all right.
Okay, so you need to go back to your IT department. I think go back to your IT department, and they're going to push back on you, and they're going to say, "Hey, look, Python costs an extra $20 a month. We don't want to give that to you." And you're like, "No, I don't want the premium Python. I just want the basic Python." Um, and so that'll overcome their $20 fear. They have to go into the Microsoft 365 admin tab. They might have to sign you up for the monthly channel instead of the semi-annual channel. I'm I'm not very clear on where that lives right now, but then they have to give you a Python license. And the great news is, I'm sure Microsoft doesn't want me to say this. Microsoft is going to come to you and say, hey, you're using a little bit too much Python for that free plan. We're going to slow you down a little bit. Just say, yeah, that's fine. Nothing they've done is slowed down at all, right? So I'm not paying the $20 extra a month for faster Python when Python it's running just fine. So that could be it. What was the other question? Is there another?
Can you use range names in data frames?
Oh, yeah, yeah, sure. I'm sure, absolutely sure. That way, if the range name is extendable or something like that, yes, that would make a lot of sense. And if you use a table, that table automatically extends. Those are great ideas. Those are great, great ideas. Good.
Great. Well, we are out of time.
Yeah,
If you have any other questions, feel free to email them in and I'll get them to Bill and we'll answer them. But
sounds
just
good.
thank you again, Bill, for joining us today. And thank
Yeah,
you, everybody. We will send the recording either later today, tomorrow. You will get it, as well as his book and other resources. So just keep an eye out for that. And then if you answer 3 out of the 4 poll questions, you'll get your CPE credit within the next week or so. All right.
all
Well,
right.
thank you again, Bill.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Stephanie.
All right. Bye-bye.